I never imagined silence could echo. But for weeks, that's all we had. Long evenings where the only sounds came from her noise-canceling headphones or the faint hum of separate screens playing different shows. We'd sit in the same room. She curled on the couch with a crime docuseries. Me at the desk flipping through sports highlights or scrolling news I didn't care about. Not attention, just that dull, unspoken quiet. The kind that seeps into your bones and makes you wonder when you stop being seen. It hadn't always been like this. There used to be laughter, dumb jokes over takeout, half-formed conversations while brushing teeth, random text messages during the day to share a meme or a stupid thought. But somewhere along the way, those disappeared. First gradually, then like someone pulled a cord. The absence grew roots, winding its way through everything. The tipping point wasn't dramatic. No shouting match or slam doors, just breakfast. A Tuesday, I think. She made toast and left it in the toaster for a second too long. The edges darkened and flaked. She barely looked up from her phone while setting the plate on the table. I poured coffee. She stirred almond milk into hers without a word. Then she spoke, and the tone, steady, intentional, immediately got my full attention. "I've been thinking," she said, placing her phone face down. "We need a reset." "Eh, what?" I asked, confused more by her calm than her words. Like a pause. A week without each other. No texts and check-ins. Just time to think. Separately. I stared at her, trying to decide if this was a trap. Her expression gave nothing away. Not cold or warm. Just businesslike. "You're serious?" "I already booked an Airbnb," she said, sipping her coffee. "It's not far. Just someplace quiet. I leave Monday." I nodded. "Okay, if that's what you need." She didn't say thank you or offer a reassuring smile. Instead, she grabbed her bag and keys, said she had a meeting, and walked out. I sat there staring at her half-eaten toast, wondering when we'd become two polite strangers sharing a kitchen. Later that night, she was in bed early, watching videos on her tablet. I noticed the open tabs on her laptop. Airbnb listings sorted by proximity to the coast. I scrolled through them quietly. Oceanside cottages, minimalist studios. Then I caught a detail that pulled me upright. The dates of her stay aligned perfectly with her office's annual creative retreat, the same one she'd previously said she wasn't attending this year. I closed the laptop gently, stood, and went to my computer. That's when my plan started. I began with the essentials, searched for pod storage, selected the smallest available passport locker, and scheduled it for the morning of her departure. I found a budget studio apartment hotel across town that offered monthly rates and fast Wi-Fi, just enough comfort to function and rebuild from scratch. Then I opened a tab for the postal service. Mail forwarding took 10 minutes. It was oddly mechanical, the way it all came together. No rage or heartbreak. She wanted time alone. I'd give her more than that. That weekend, she was unusually upbeat. Almost giddy. She started packing on Saturday morning. Yoga pants, beach towels, and her favorite oversized hoodie, which she only wore on solo getaways. There was a hum in her voice when she spoke, like someone anticipating a long-deserved vacation. I watched her from the hallway as she folded things into her suitcase with practiced precision. On the dresser lay a printed itinerary for her reset week, complete with driving directions, meal prep suggestions, and a checklist titled Books to Reconnect With. She didn't notice me watching. Or if she did, she didn't acknowledge it. By Sunday, she was triple-checking her checklist, ensuring that everything, from skin serums to Bluetooth speakers, was packed. She'd reserved an Uber for the morning. I told her I'd see her off, help her with the bags. She smiled and gently touched my arm. "Thank you for being understanding." Understanding. I spent the rest of the night reviewing what little remained of my digital tether to her. Our shared photo cloud, group texts, calendar syncs. I began untangling threads. No announcements. Just quiet exits. I booked my check-in for the apartment hotel at noon the next day, confirmed the locker appointment for 9 a.m., and closed my laptop. When I climbed into bed beside her, she was already asleep. Her breathing is slow, peaceful, as if tomorrow wasn't going to change a thing. But for me, it already had. Because when you give someone space, you find out exactly how much of yourself they were willing to hold on to. And sometimes, the moment you finally let go, you realize you'd been holding your breath for months. Her Uber pulled up right on time. I watched from the window as she adjusted her sunglasses, suitcase in one hand, coffee in the other, tapping something into her phone with the kind of relaxed energy you see on people headed for retreats, not reckonings. The driver stepped out to grab her bag, and for a second, she turned toward the building. She waved, probably assuming I'd be standing at the door, offering a smile or some last-minute encouragement. I stayed out of view. The elevator chimed as it descended. By the time her ride disappeared down the street, I had already tossed my phone on the couch, grabbed the keys off the hook, and walked into motion. Downstairs, the pod's container was right on schedule, a small, white, plain one. The 2 movers I'd booked through the Hire a Helper app greeted me like it was any other job. They didn't ask questions. I pointed to the living room. 11 boxes stacked against the wall, 1 computer setup, and a single chair I'd always liked more than she did. It took them less than 2 hours. I helped where I could, keeping everything quiet, efficient. The place looked oddly spacious once they left, like it had exhaled. Back upstairs, I powered on my laptop and began what felt like a digital uncoupling. First, the banking tabs. I deactivated our shared credit card by phone, calmly citing a lifestyle divergence. The woman on the line didn't press for details. My new checking account was set up in under 20 minutes, and the balance I transferred over was enough to cover the first 2 months of my new life. I redirected auto payments, utilities, subscriptions, insurance into that account, cleaning up as I went. Passwords were reset. Cloud backups were severed. Every little link between us methodically unwound. I paused once, staring at a recurring event titled Sunday Dinner with Sarah. It was scheduled for next week. We'd stopped cooking together over a month ago, defaulting to takeout that we ate in separate rooms. I hovered over the event, then hit delete. The calendar flickered, blank. It felt good. At noon, I locked the apartment behind me and took the elevator down to the management office. The leasing agent was halfway through a burrito when I walked in. He recognized me, nodded. I placed the printed termination letter on the counter, signed only by me, my name, my date, my reason boxed as relocation for personal clarity. He skimmed the document, raised an eyebrow. She cool with this? I shrugged. She asked for space. I gave her more than she thought she wanted. His mouth curled slightly. Fair enough. Back upstairs, I retrieved the small digital lock I'd ordered last week and installed it on the apartment door. It wasn't high-tech, just functional. A code-based bolt that logged every entry but didn't require a key. I reset the entry code and stored the new one in my notes. The Ring doorbell camera I mounted during last year's holiday sale was still intact. I checked the app, updated its firmware, and made sure it was fully charged. It would do the watching for me now. Inside, the place looked curated, half empty by design. I stood at the kitchen island and set down a simple manila envelope. Inside it, I placed 3 things: the signed lease termination letter, a complete summary of the account changes I made, and a single-page note. You wanted silence. I gave you room to hear it. I didn't bother with poetic flourishes. She'd understand exactly what each item meant. She liked clarity, precision. At 2:15, I filled the dog's water bowl, packed my laptop bag, and zipped up a duffel. Everything else was already with the movers or had been left behind. By 3 o'clock, I pulled out of the lot with the back seat loaded and the dog sitting beside me, watching the apartment grow smaller in the mirror. The movers had instructions to deliver the pod's container to the short-term storage facility near the studio. I wouldn't need to supervise. It was already pre-authorized. Traffic was light. A jazz station played in the background as I cruised through the city's western stretch. Not once did I look back. The studio apartment hotel was as modest as I remembered from the online tour. Compact, furnished, quiet. A small balcony overlooked a parking lot bordered by trees, just beginning to turn. It felt temporary, but peaceful. Inside, I placed the dog's bed near the window, unpacked my laptop, and connected to the hotel Wi-Fi. My inbox had a few emails from subscription services trying to verify payment changes. Nothing from her. At 6:10, my phone lit up. iMessage. Her name appeared with a wave emoji. Everything okay? The message hung there. Blue bubble. Delivered. I locked the screen and slid the phone face down on the table. The Ring app gave a light buzz at 9:48. Motion detected. The camera feed opened smoothly. She stood outside the apartment, punching in the code I hadn't changed. I watched through the grainy lens as she stepped inside, glanced around, and froze. The hallway echoed in the silence. Her voice followed. Hello. A pause. Then louder. Seriously? She wandered into the bedroom and noticed the closet was open. Empty. In the reflection of the full-length mirror, I saw her take the envelope from the kitchen counter. She read the letter, then the note. Her voice cracked. Day 1? Really? It sounded like a plea, like something soft unraveling. I ended the feed. No commentary and calls. She asked for silence, so I gave it shape. She stayed in the apartment longer than I expected. The Ring camera recorded the entire visit, 38 minutes, most of it in silence. She wandered through each room as if seeing them for the first time, opening drawers I had already emptied, running her fingers along the edges of the dresser where my cologne once sat. The bathroom cabinet still had her products lined up with obsessive neatness, but my side, razor, aftershave, toothbrush, was bare. She lingered there, blinking too fast, then walked to the kitchen. When she reached the envelope, she hesitated. It wasn't the letter that rattled her, it was the bank statement. I'd printed the first page showing the closure of our shared checking account and the auto-pay cancellations in bold. Neatly listed, streaming services, groceries, phone bill. At the bottom, a final line, transferred balance, complete. She reread the note twice before placing everything back in the envelope and setting it precisely where it had been. For a moment, she just stood there, gripping the edge of the counter, lips pressed tight. I watched it all from the apartment hotel. The feed ran smoothly, no buffering. Just her, silent, stunned, still trying to process what had been done in a single afternoon. By the time she left, dusk had crept in. The light outside had dimmed to a soft gray blue, matching the shift in her posture. She looked smaller somehow, like the air had deflated her. The system logged her exit at 10:27 p.m. The door clicked shut. The hallway went quiet again. I closed the app. The room around me remained still, save for the faint hum of the ceiling fan. My dog lay curled on the rug, exhaling a long breath that almost sounded human. I reached for my glass and took a slow sip. No toasts, just the quiet kind of satisfaction that settles in when your world has been rearranged by your hand. The following morning, I walked to the nearest cafe, ordered a black coffee, and found a seat by the window. A small notebook lay in front of me, untouched since I'd packed it. I opened to a blank page and started writing. Not a journal, just lines of thought meant to organize the next phase. Bullet points of freedom. Buy groceries for one. Move the second half of savings. Create new emergency contact. She had been the last one. Update doctor forms. Each line felt cleaner than the last. By midday, I returned to the studio and turned off Do Not Disturb. Messages flooded in, primarily promotional. A few from colleagues confirming meetings, and 2 from mutual friends who probably hadn't yet been filled in. Their texts were polite. Hey man, how's the reset going? Sarah told me you both took some time. I didn't respond. There was nothing to clarify. Everyone would understand soon enough, just not through me. Later that evening, a voicemail notification slid across the top of my screen. She had called again. This time, the transcription read, "You've turned everything upside down." I thought this was a pause, not this. The text ended there, cut off by silence. I didn't play the recording. Instead, I opened the photos folder on my laptop. Buried deep were screenshots I'd taken months ago, blurred images, timestamps, bits of conversation that had never quite made sense until now. A series of photos from her work retreat the previous year, supposedly a dull team-building exercise in some remote beachfront property. Her caption had read, "Rainy and boring. Miss you." Yet the sky behind her had been brilliant, the angle suspiciously close to someone else's towel on the same lounger. Another shot, shared to her story and deleted within an hour, showed a wine glass across from hers. The hand holding it wasn't feminine. The ring visible on the other thumb wasn't mine. At the time, I'd given her the benefit of the doubt. I zoomed in now and studied every pixel. Details I once ignored had become obvious. The repetition of the same initials and comment threads. A team leader, who always seemed to show up in photos where she appeared slightly too relaxed. A certain closeness in body language. Her smile, tilted more to one side than she ever gave me. One image included a reflection in the glass behind her. It caught a partial figure leaning in, clearly cropped from the frame. A familiar haircut, the one belonging to someone I'd shaken hands with once at a fundraiser, introduced as a mentor. I didn't need to know more. That reset week she pitched hadn't been for clarity. It was a cover. A vacation under the mask of self-discovery. Maybe she hoped to explore both futures and pick one by Friday. Too late. The decision had already been made, for both of us. That night, I rearranged the studio a little, shifted the chair, moved the lamp to a warmer bulb, put on the first track from the playlist I'd titled Fresh Start. A soft acoustic melody filled the room. Nothing loud, just enough to change the air. Outside, the city lights blinked through the curtains. Inside, it felt weightless. I sat on the bed with the laptop open, the Ring app minimized but ready. I didn't expect her to return again so soon, but part of me was curious. Would she come back? Would she bring excuses or revelations? Or would she finally understand that pause isn't a command, it's a gamble? One that sometimes ends with the other side pressing skip. By Tuesday morning, her messages had shifted tone. Gone were the smiley faces, the light check-ins, the casual, just seeing how you're doing kind of phrasing. Her texts were direct now. Curious, then slightly frantic. So you're really not answering? Are you mad? This wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought we agreed on space, not disappearance. Each one appeared beneath the last, blue bubbles stacking quietly, unanswered. The delivery receipts were still active, so she knew I'd receive them. What she didn't realize yet was that I had muted her thread entirely. I skimmed the previews occasionally, just enough to track the descent, but didn't open any directly. As far as she could tell, my silence wasn't even a protest. It was a vacuum. I hadn't blocked her. That would have felt too final, too reactionary. This was different. She wanted the right to retreat. She didn't expect I'd go farther. The Ring camera picked her up again that afternoon. She didn't look around this time. No careful readings of printed statements. She stepped in, grabbed a sweater she must have forgotten in the closet, and stood in front of the island for several long minutes. Hands braced on the edge, eyes on the envelope she'd already read. She didn't touch it, just stared. Then the door clicked, and she vanished from view. That night, a new voicemail arrived. The transcription read, "You've made your point. Can we talk now? Please?" It ended abruptly, as though she'd considered saying more and decided against it. My phone stayed face down on the nightstand. I had started making small rituals in the studio, things to keep me grounded. Coffee always came first, followed by a quiet morning walk with the dog, and then 15 minutes of email triage. I'd unsubscribed from half of the promotional spam we used to receive together. Wedding invites, birthday reminders, shared calendars. I purged them all. It was as if removing her from my digital life rewired the space in my head. The dog adjusted faster than expected. He slept by the window most days, keeping a soft watch on the parking lot below. His presence brought balance, like some unspoken confirmation that the shift I'd made was correct. Midweek, she texted again. "Are we even going to discuss this?" I'm confused. I wasn't. Her confusion stemmed from realizing she'd built a plan assuming I'd remain in place. That I'd hold still, wait my turn, press pause until she returned with clarity. Instead, she came back to absence. And not the kind she'd orchestrated. By Thursday, she used her last card, familiarity. "Do you remember that weekend in Palm Springs? We almost burned the pancakes, and you said you'd never seen me laugh like that. You said that version of me was worth every fight." It was true. I remembered that day. The light coming through the window, the smell of sunblock and oranges, the way she had curled into me during a thunderstorm 2 nights later. I remembered every second. That didn't mean I wanted to relive it. I closed the message thread and reopened the Ring feed. Nothing. She hadn't returned since grabbing the sweater. Friday morning, I received a different kind of ping, this time from our mutual friend Diana. The message was vague, clearly meant to nudge. "She's been a mess. Whatever's going on, maybe give her a chance to explain." I stared at it for a long time. Diana had always been more like a friend to me than to her. Still, she meant well. Maybe she assumed I had walked out mid-argument, or that a miscommunication had ballooned into something larger than intended. I typed a reply, hovered over the keyboard, and erased it. Some explanations don't need to be invited. If someone really wants to make something right, they don't ask for a microphone. They show up ready to speak, without prompting. That night, I returned to the cafe from earlier in the week. Same seat by the window. Same notebook. I opened a new page and titled it Things That Stay. Underneath, I began listing moments that survived the unraveling. Not regrets, just fragments of time that didn't belong to either of us anymore. Neutral memories. The first road trip, She slept against the window, my jacket around her shoulders. That dumb Halloween party where we dressed as matching skeletons. Her voice at 2 a.m. after her father passed, broken, quiet, needing anchoring. Our last anniversary, awkward sushi, forced laughter, the silence that followed. I didn't cross anything out. Some pieces don't get rewritten. They sit there, filed under before. The following ring alert came at 2:11 a.m. She returned. I tapped the feed. She stood at the threshold again, suitcase by her side. Not the weekender she had left with. This was the full-sized one. A deep plum Samsonite she only used for longer trips. She entered slowly, eyes scanning as if expecting something different. But everything remained exactly as she'd left it on Monday. Empty closet, stripped dresser, closed envelope. She didn't walk further in this time. Just stood in the living room, bathed in soft hallway light, hands loose at her sides. Then, her voice, soft but picked up clearly. I came back to try, and you were already gone. She pulled out her phone, lifted it to her ear, waited, then lowered it again. No attempt to leave another voicemail. No more texts. The camera time-stamped her exit at 2:23. I muted the app and turned back to the notebook. Flipped the page. Started a new list. What comes next? By Saturday afternoon, the Ring app had stayed silent for 24 hours. No entry logs. No motion triggers. Nothing. It was the first full day she hadn't returned to the apartment. I took it as a signal. Not peace, exactly. More like surrender. Or maybe realization. That the space she once requested had expanded into something unrecognizable. She had offered distance like a trial, believing it could be undone, scaled back with the right words, the right tone. But time doesn't always return what it borrows. That morning, I brewed coffee and opened the balcony door to let the air in. The sky hung low, overcast, the pale gray that mutes the world without making it bleak. I sat on the small plastic chair with a mug in one hand, watching the wind disturb a single grocery bag caught in the branches below. Nothing dramatic, just movement. The playlist I'd built, Fresh Start, spilled softly from my laptop. Instrumentals mostly. Clean melodies. Tracks without lyrics felt better somehow, like leaving room for new thoughts instead of cramming old ones back in. Midway through the second song, another message appeared, this time from someone I didn't expect, Alan. He'd been my colleague for years, borderline friend, but primarily through professional overlap. Occasionally, we'd double date with our partners, trade restaurant recommendations, and gripe about workloads. We never got personal. His text was short. Can I call you? It's about Sarah. I stared at the name. My chest didn't lurch. No wave of suspicion or dread. Just curiosity and a quiet sense of confirmation. I responded with a single word. Sure. The call came 5 minutes later. I answered. His voice was hesitant at first, like he was wading through something unpleasant. I wasn't sure if I should say anything. However, I noticed that your name was removed from the couple's list for the company's retreat. And Sarah, she didn't exactly come alone. I said nothing. He continued. There's this guy? New hire. Marketing department. She introduced him as a friend, but they were together the whole time. Off hours, dinners, and even disappeared for most of Thursday. People noticed. Still, I stayed quiet. I thought you should know, he added. In case you didn't already. I already did, I replied. But thanks for saying it. A brief silence passed between us. She doesn't know I called, he said. I won't tell her. We hung up. I sat with the phone in my lap, watching the steam rise from my mug. There had never been a confrontation. No direct accusations. Only space, and what was revealed inside of it. I realized then that this week hadn't created anything new. It had simply cleared the fog. The detachment she dressed in rational terms, a reset, time to reflect, a temporary pause, was always just a preface to abandonment. Only she hadn't expected me to turn the final page so quickly. Later that day, I logged into the storage company's portal. My container had arrived at the facility and was already in holding. I scheduled the drop-off for the following Tuesday. An absolute apartment lease had been signed that morning. First and last month already wired. It had hardwood floors and a small view of the park. Close to the studio, far from the echoes. I returned to the notebook. On a clean page, I wrote the heading Closing Moves. Remove name from remaining utilities. Cancel joint gym membership. Replace last password. Delete cloud folder. Archive ring history. None of it felt very pleasant. Just procedural, like filing old receipts, kept only long enough to prove what happened. Sunday evening, I walked to the park near the studio. Kids played near the fountains. Couples shared benches. A man strummed a guitar, off-key but earnest. I sat beneath a sycamore tree and let myself exhale. The dog flopped beside me, tail thumping lazily against the grass. I replayed parts of the week in my head. Her voice at the door, the way she hovered inside the apartment, her final sentence through the ring feed. I came back to try, and you were already gone. She had meant it as a lament. A complaint, maybe. But to me, it sounded like clarity. Because in truth, I had left long before my physical departure. The moment she packaged disconnection as growth, I'd started packing, first emotionally, then literally. She wanted space. I accepted her offer. Then I multiplied it. Monday arrived quietly. The movers confirmed my delivery time. I brewed the first cup of coffee in the studio's tiny kitchenette, watching the digital clock blink 7:01. The air felt cleaner. My phone buzzed once, an automated reminder from the lease app. Nothing from her. Nothing else. I turned on music, opened my laptop, and glanced out at the street below. People moved with purpose. Shops began to stir. The city hadn't paused. Neither had I. As the soft rhythm of a new track played through the speakers, I opened a document titled Life, version 2.0. I began typing. She had pressed pause. I chose next.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.